not live.
We are live. We're ready to talk some Tesla, some macro hard. We're going to bring in a special guest today. See when they arrive. Got a special announcement. A new brand of Halter Ferguson Financial. We're still doing Rebellionaire. Rebellionaire is going strong. Got quite the wait list now for people coming into Rebellionaire. So Matt, did you vote?
I voted. Yeah, it's a Tuesday, not in November, but I voted. I voted my Tesla shares today. Can't tell you guys how to vote, but I think it is important to vote in the interest of your shares. This is a pretty important proxy vote coming up for the Tesla shareholder meeting on November 6th. Very excited to see what they share with us that day, but definitely important to go out and vote your shares. So I did that this morning and encourage everyone to do the same. Did you vote, Bradford?
Not yet, but I will shortly. So what custodian did you vote at, Matt?
At Fidelity. I've heard from some people, like at Interactive Brokers, they might have had some trouble. I think Schwab, I'm not sure if Schwab has theirs out yet, but yeah, with Fidelity, at least it was pretty easy to vote the shares.
I do think it's important to vote along with what the folks at Tesla are thinking. And there's a couple reasons for that. Not voting advice, but could significantly increase Tesla's compliance and reporting obligations unnecessarily. A lot of these extra items are on the menu every year at the shareholder meeting. And it's frustrating to listen to those as they go through.
Yeah, I was just thinking of like the 4 minutes or whatever it was about like the electromagnetic pulses and from the drivetrain and what they might potentially do to the human body, and just like all these like random things that again, all these shareholders have to listen to. And when you stack up several of them together, it takes half an hour to get through them all. And yeah, it's just it's a vibe killer.
It's a big waste of time. And a lot of people watch the shareholders meeting or are present too. So you're wasting probably a half hour. So that could be like 500,000 hours of human time doing that. Yeah, so that'll be frustrating, but excited to vote. I will vote. Just kind of waiting to hear, the different custodians being ready to allow the voting. Some other Tesla news. First, let's talk about the two big hombres. We had some iconic pictures at the memorial service for Charlie Kirk. Here's one of them. That one's not quite as iconic, but those.
It's positive though. I mean, like you can tell that Elon is actually happy there.
And allegedly, Elon gave a Benjamin Franklin-like quote saying that, if we hang together, they can't hang us separately, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's if we don't hang together, they'll hang us separately.
Oh,
so, yeah. That was so one of the guys that was in the room with them in that suite.
Benny Johnson, maybe.
I think that's what it was, or who it was. Reported that was what Elon said to kind of kick off the conversation to Trump, and so it sounds like it's a legitimate reconciliation there, as far as I can tell, and not a just like a quick awkward photo op or something like that. So I think that was definitely good news and good to see.
Yeah, and I think this is just my suspicion, but I think Elon's realizing that culture is more important than the economics. So he was upset about the alleged deficit from the big beautiful bill and them not institutionalizing the Doge cuts to save on spending. But I think he's realizing that culturally, there's some differences that are important to align on. We do have our special guests in the green room. They are getting gussied up right now. But let's talk about Arizona.
Yeah, so fresh off the lot of stuff going on in Arizona. Arizona is actually where that reconciliation happened, but the more direct Tesla news is that the Tesla has been approved for robotaxi service in Arizona, and then here this post here is that the FSD validation vehicle was spotted. So very exciting to see the pace of new geographies kind of rolling out. And I think the big question that has been on our mind is okay, what is this pace of rollout going to be? How quickly are they going to get to a scale that actually matters in terms of earnings power of the company? In the long term, it won't really matter, but for the next 12 months or so, that's going to be a really kind of telling factor in terms of how quickly we're going to get to this robotaxi future that we believed in for so long.
Now, I'm not an expert on all the local and state laws, but there seems to be with many states, there's a progression that autonomous vehicle operators have to go through. Maybe it's a number of miles, and then they need to report on the safety and get that to regulators before they can do more. California certainly has that. I think it's like something like 50,000 miles, or I don't think it's 500,000 miles. I think it's 50,000. So there'll be some of those things slowing things down initially, but like the more safety monitors you can have in an area, the more quickly you can do the miles, and each car can do 300 miles a day easily.
Yeah, I mean the scale. I think where we get to the point where the scale really goes crazy is when they get the safety monitors out, though, and I'm curious if we might start seeing that on V14, which could be very soon. I suspect not. I think they're going to want to still be cautious. But what's your thought on, let's say V14 rolls out in 2 weeks or something like that? Maybe 2 weeks is the wrong time frame because it's a little triggering for long-term Tesla bulls. But let's say it rolls out in 2 weeks and it's in the robotaxi in Austin and just like extremely safe and demonstrably so. Do they remove the safety monitors at that point? Or out of an abundance of caution and to collect the data kind of showing safety statistics, do they leave the safety monitors in for longer?
So one thing we found out recently was that they weren't just there for safety. They're also there for other qualitative reasons. So they're looking at pickup and drop off and, giving their insight to Tesla after each ride. So they're observing more things than just safety. So it may not immediately come off out of Austin as soon as V14 comes out, or they have a version of V14 they're comfortable with. But once they get things dialed in with pickup and drop off and any other things that might be unique or special to Austin, I think it'll happen. And curious to see how quickly they expand in Texas.
Yeah, definitely excited to see that. And the other thing you and I have been excited about, it seems like the market's starting to recognize it a bit, is just production and deliveries for Q3. Now, I think we've been saying for a while that, deliveries don't really matter in the long term. These quarterly numbers, which will, jump up and down by 100,000 units or so. But Q3 is looking extremely strong. Do you have a number in mind? I know you and I haven't spoken about this, but I was going through my model earlier today, and I've got some thoughts, and anyone subscribed to Troy can kind of see what he's thought. But what's your number if you have one?
This is without any big deep dive. I'm guessing Futuraza has some better information or study that he's done, but I feel like they can at least match Q3 of last year, which I'm just going off of memory. Was it like maybe 478,000 or something?
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
But my feeling, my heart says over 500,000, and I don't think people are really ready for it.
Yeah, I think that's right. They also built up a good amount of inventory last quarter too, so they've got that. That said, I think at least in the United States, because we don't have this, September 30th deadline anymore to take delivery.
Mhm.
So I think they won't have a crazy end of quarter push to try to get those last 10,000 vehicles or so delivered, by 9:30 rather than on 10:1 or 10:2. I don't think they're going to have that crazy push. So that might soften things a little bit more than would otherwise be the case. But I agree with you. I think there's going to be, close to 500,000. I don't think we'll actually break that number, but it wouldn't surprise me drastically if we do. But here, Brian, who's always got good information on this, says many markets have inventory on hand, which is surprising. I'm not sure how surprising that really is. I mean, I heard one story of on X today of somebody who got the I think it was a lease on the Model Y. I might be getting these facts a little bit wrong, but there was a difference on whether you could get the credit, whether it was like a lease or a cash purchase. And so they ended up denying delivery because there was some confusion around how that $7,500 tax credit would be treated. So I think there's going to be some situations like that, and there's always a little inventory here or there. But I was actually looking recently. I didn't see huge numbers, but Brian's probably tracking this closer than I am.
Yep. Well, the time has arrived. Let's see what's going on with Larry. We'll bring Larry on here. Is the power restored over there?
Yeah, I mean, as I got on into the green room, my power just went off.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was the vendors, they're busy still with the house. This is a brand new house. And but it turned out to be my brand new out of the box UPS just switched itself off.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was on a timer, some sort of code that said when he gets on the first broadcast, switch off.
That's right.
I think whoever was in charge of that is the same person who was handling Trump at the UN. I don't know if you saw this, but the moment he stepped on the escalator, it stopped working. The moment he stepped up to the mic, the screen, the teleprompter stopped working. So I think somebody was intentionally sabotaging him there.
Oh, yeah.
They might have you as well.
Term for that is called resistance. So Larry,
that's a bad joke.
It is. Larry, you and I have something fun to announce. We've been cooking up something. We do have to be a little vague about it, but it has to do with a bit of venture capital. Larry, maybe you can tease us a bit.
Right. So, I've been a venture capital investor for some time, always taking advantage of other VCs' funds and enjoying the ride. But it occurred to me and to us both that, both of us are investors in Elon Musk's private companies. And we've done, I believe, quite well out of that. In fact, I would say they're about one of my best investments. And it got me thinking, most VCs don't really have a mission, or very few have a mission of consequence. The value of investing in Elon Musk's companies is, he has a mission, and the mission is to extend the light of human consciousness. And that mission really has appealed to me and has been one of the primary drivers. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great to have a VC fund or to invest in, ventures that are focused on the same mission?
Mm-hmm.
And so that got me to thinking that, this would be something that I would like to do. But why not bring along those people who understand the mission, those people who have invested with Elon, those people who really wish to be part of such a mission? And so that got me to thinking, well, I've got this friend, Brad Ferguson, who knows quite a lot about investing and has done extremely, good work for his Rebellionaires. And so I spoke to Brad, and he liked the idea. And here we are. We're about to launch Lumacenti. Do you want to talk about Lumacenti, Brad?
Yeah, so it's going to be our venture capital brand for both TRL Trillis, Larry's office, but also Halter Ferguson Financial. So it's going to be a brand for both Larry and I. And we can't talk about like the first deal yet. But if you go to our website at lumacenti.com and you fill out the form, then we can keep you posted on things. And I think it's for accredited investors or higher than that. So there's qualified investors and qualified purchasers as well. And it's a fun thing. So it's kind of like you get to play the role of Shark Tank. So in Shark Tank, you get to hear the pitch of the entrepreneur. You get to hear about a business that might be in an earlier stage than a company that's IPO'd. And we found a couple of companies where we feel like we're getting in pretty early. One of them may be very early. We'll see how things go, but I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited to pitch our first opportunity to folks. Now, certainly, venture capital has its risk. A lot of investments don't work out, but I think one reason why Larry's drawn to me is for my judgment. We've talked through a number of deals together where we've gone over a deal for more than a month and on a couple of them and made our way through that route. It can be quite a journey to look at opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that in our business, it's far more important. The investments you turn down are far more important than the ones that you select.
Mm-hmm.
And selection it's 99% of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And here, we're selecting not just for the investment value, but beyond the investment value for the impact of that company. And so that's why I'm very excited. I'm excited about what our mission is, but I'm also excited about the quality of the companies that we select, and we'll talk about that individually with interested parties. So yeah, it's a very exciting time, and of course, I'm extremely excited to be involved in business with Bradford and with Matt, people I've known for a long time and people I trust, whose judgment I trust, and who we've looked at, quite a few deals together. And, as I've said, we turn down many more deals than we enter into, and that's very important. But also the quality of the people who are able to see things that you can't see. And so that's why I'm very excited to be with these great people. And we have some more members of our team, which we'll be introducing over time.
Yeah. And there's a question, I think this would be good fruit for discussion. Can you speak a bit about investment principles? And I'll share one thing that I'm drawn to a lot initially is, what kind of cost advantage does the company have? Maybe it's a technology that brings it, or market position, or maybe it's totally new and they're the only ones. But what's the cost advantage that the company has? And compared to their competitors, what kind of value do they bring versus their competitors? And you're looking for that combination.
Yeah, we call it a moat. And, a moat can come in many different forms. The clearest moat is unique inventiveness, such that can be not only protected by a patent, but protected by a very deep level of technology where the knowledge is unique, the knowledge is extraordinarily hard to replicate, and where even when you are able to see the product, test the product, try the product out, the ability to replicate it is very, very difficult.
Mhm.
These things come along not that often. In fact, extraordinarily seldom. There are other advantages. One can be first to market, one can be way ahead, but very often these advantages can be easily overcome. But when those advantages cannot be overcome and that moat exists, that's a very, very clear signal that this is a good opportunity. I also look for management. I believe the human factor is incredibly important in enterprise. I often tell the story of why I sold my Intel stock. And so, many years ago, a person who worked for me had a sister, an older sister, who was a senior person at Intel. And she asked me to meet her sister and have lunch with her, just to introduce me to her. And I did. And we were talking at over lunch, and she's told me that she was going on sabbatical in the coming year. She's going to be away for a year. She's touring the Far East. I said, really? How does that happen? She said, oh, at Intel, every 7 years we get a sabbatical for a year. We get fully paid for a year. I said, oh, that sounds wonderful. And I went home and sold my Intel stock. So, culture is very important. Senior management is very important. Those are two elements of judgment. And then, of course, mission. We call ourselves Lumicenti because we really believe in this mission, which is one of the reasons I'm so fully invested in all the Elon Musk companies.
Yeah.
And anything else, Brad, you want to add to that?
Well, there was something you told me when you first talked to me about it. Like, you're like, we don't want to invest in the next delivery app, right?
Thank you. Yeah. So I get probably 3 to 10 emails a day, direct messages, LinkedIn messages. I mean, people can find me in so many ways, and I get 3 to 10 messages a day. Bad days when I get as many as 10, are good days when I get as little as 1. Actually, the best days when I get none. And I try and answer them all. I try and understand them all and answer them all. And, 99%, in fact, most of my direct messages I decline, and mainly because they're apps. They're, somebody coded this or somebody coded that, and somebody thought about this particular little thing that's a pain in the butt that this app solves.
Mm-hmm.
These are not mission-driven, future-focused ideas. These are not the kinds of things that, are going to perpetuate the light of human consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And not only do they not have a mission, but they're easily replicated. In today's world, an app, code can be simply replicated. So if it's code, no, I'm not even going to start by looking at it. So I can tell you the reasons I decline things. It's very hard to tell you the reasons I investigate. And most of those that I investigate are those that are unique in character, are extraordinarily difficult to replicate,
Mm-hmm.
have a decided market first strike at their particular market, or are invented enough to create an entirely new market.
So let me ask you a question along these lines, Larry. So last November, I was down in Austin. I was thinking about Tesla and robotaxi, and and thinking that Tesla should buy Lyft because it was only like a $5 billion or $7 billion at the time. They could get the app, they could get all their data, but they didn't end up going that route. But they're figuring out the app very quickly. I'm curious your thoughts around this issue specifically.
I don't like it. Lyft does not have a stellar name, so it's not as if they have some sort of franchise. I would have thought, in terms of the app, Tesla already probably have an app that is cleaner and better than Lyft. But in terms of the market share, I think Tesla will obliterate Lyft's market share even before it obliterates
Uber, yeah.
You could equate Hertz and Uber in terms of where they stand in the marketplace. I don't see. I used to think in the early days that it would be good to buy Uber, but it was quite apparent that I was wrong. It's quite apparent that the market share is going to be very rapidly eaten up if the price of a robotaxi, if the cost of a robotaxi is as low as we now calculate it to be. So I don't see the value of the buying of Lyft because they don't have to buy market share and they don't have to buy an app. So what actually would they be buying?
Data.
What is the data? The people who sign up for rideshare?
Around logistics and dead miles and things like that.
Oh, I see. Well, robotaxi is going to change the equation on that.
You could also use it to advertise to the customers too. So I'm guessing there's millions that have used Lyft's app, probably at least over 10 million people, and you get access to them.
But your market is not those 10 million people.
Yeah.
Your market is the 90 million people that don't use Lyft.
Okay.
Because that's the whole point of robotaxis. It's going to expand the market dramatically.
Mm.
At $4 a mile, the market is this large. At $1 a mile, it's this large. Now, you don't have to go from $4 down to $1, but at $1 a mile, it's not that you become competitive with Uber or you become competitive to Lyft.
Mm-hmm.
What you do is you dramatically expand the market to way beyond those people who are Lyft customers and Uber customers. You expand it to the population in general because now you're competing against the automobile, not against Uber and Lyft.
Mm-hmm. So before we leave the topic completely, I do want to return to the website. So if you're interested, you can go to lumacenti.com and click the join us button, fill out the form, and we'll get in touch with you. What things look like after that is, pretty shortly we'll be looking to present our first opportunities. So the first opportunities are, well, what it looks like is they'll likely be the founder that'll be presenting. There might be one of the major investors or a board member that is there, and so you would get to learn about it and ask questions of the founder and really begin to dig in. There would also be some materials that we could provide. Sometimes there's an NDA, so likely there's an NDA because you're seeing the financials and hearing stuff about a private company. So you do the NDA and then you can learn more. I just think it's a fun thing. I feel like I'm on Shark Tank, but I'm not like mean like Mr. Wonderful, or we don't fight like Mark Cuban and Lori or whatever over deals. So there's none of that unnecessary drama. But it is fun and interesting. I just think it's exciting too. You learn about different companies, and it helps me become a better investor overall.
And it's important to note that Brad and I will be investors in the companies that we bring to market. So, every case we will have made the commitment ourselves, and we wouldn't ask you to make that commitment otherwise.
Yeah. All right. So typically this is for people with over $1 million liquid. That's a credit, one way to be a accredited investor. And you shouldn't put a majority of your investments in a private company. So it should be a small portion of your overall in case it doesn't work out or it remains illiquid for a long period of time. So there are a number of risks. Execution risks are another risk. And that's something that Larry and I work through as, what are the potential hurdles? How is the company planning to get over those hurdles? How are they addressing those objections? And that's really key for us in the investment process. All right. So maybe we could talk about something controversial, or at least
I would never talk about anything controversial, Brad.
So let's talk about a moonshot first, macro hard. So it's the opposite of Microsoft. That I only put 2 and 2 together like a week ago.
Elon's been making that joke for years. I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah.
I can be slow at times. I can be slow. Yeah. So
I think he founded macro hard just to use that word.
It's a better name than Microsoft, I gotta admit.
Well, Microsoft's done okay with that name. I mean, not great, but okay.
Investors have been rewarded.
When I was building Powerflex in the 80s, Microsoft was just killing it. I mean, just killing it. They were the open AI of their day. I mean, they were just killing it.
Yeah.
So think about it. It was 40 years ago.
So do you think the goal is to? I think it sounds like it. They want to create an operating system from scratch. You're going to incorporate AI in there. You can replicate all the stuff. You can replicate spreadsheets, Word documents, PDFs, OCR, everything, all the intelligence. Do you think they're doing all that? And essentially, you could do an email program, just everything, soup to nuts. And
well, Chamath created this company 8090 ostensibly to automatically generate, or not automatically, to generate operating applications, operating system for an enterprise from scratch using AI code. He discovered it wasn't that easy.
It's a little tricky.
He discovered that actually you can't use AI as code to be code. You actually have to code using determinative, code to actually execute, simply because of the speed and also because of the determinative nature of it. In other words, it doesn't guess, and it can never, get it wrong or get it, statistically correct, but in the particular case, extremely bad. But anyway, the bottom line is that he found it wasn't as easy as he thought. So I don't know. Go ahead.
So maybe you make it determinative for the operating system. You can have AI help you write the code.
That's right. That's what he's ended up doing. Yeah.
So essentially, the OS is a collection of tools.
Yeah.
And a really powerful thing that has enabled agentic AI to be like extra powerful. Like we have a programmer at Halter Ferguson, and it's 10x his productivity. I
Right.
know, yeah, I know lines of
think-
code are not something to be proud of, but like
Yeah.
he was able to do 90,000 lines of code in 3 months rather than 9,000. So it literally 10x'd him. So the real power is giving AI the tools. So you give AI the operating system. Go ahead, Larry.
I really think, what you've described is the right approach, but I think macro hard is taking it to another level.
Okay.
I imagine that macro hard is a series of agents, agents that are designed to automate many of the tasks which currently agentic AI, has to. I mean, I use a program like Manus. Manus is a set of agents that operate off existing AI stacks to do all these tasks, to try and automate all these tasks. And it's already aged. I mean, it's only about 6 or 8 months old, and it's already like, yeah, but all the other guys are doing that stuff already. So I can't imagine that he isn't taking this up to a higher level of agency. And I think it's all about agency. So everything you've described is correct, but it's just the level of agency that it's able to actually execute on. There are so many pitfalls in trying to create agentic AI because, that every time you want to do something, there's another piece that there isn't a tool for to actually do that piece. So, if you assemble a set of tools to do a particular job and it's doing it well, the moment you want to do a slightly different job, you need different sets of tools. So I think that where macro hard is going is to a higher level, where the tool generation or the ability to create those tools are going to be automated.
Can I drill in on that a little bit with you, Larry? Because one of the things I've noticed with some of these agentic AI tools, or even like if you do any type of research, like the AI can kind of go down the wrong path, and then if it just is like recursively going down there without any oversight, all of a sudden it's like 2 miles and down the road in completely the wrong direction, and so you're like burning money on tokens for that and just kind of going the wrong way. So I think 6 months ago, when is it Manus, the tool that you were using, was put together, like you didn't really like that was state of the art back then, but this is just moving so quickly. Elon now saying Grok 5 might actually achieve AGI. Now let's put a grain of salt on that for sure, but I think bare minimum, if you accept the premise that let's say at some point 6 to 12 to 2 years from now, 6 to 12 months, 2 years from now, whenever it is, that we're going to have like truly a true AGI that is going to be able to kind of course correct these rabbit holes that right now all these AIs will go down. That's the kind of level of quality that you need to have to truly make a tool like you're describing, like massively valuable, where you can just say, hey, go do this thing, and it will run into all these little problems along the way and make all the little micro judgments along the way of how to kind of course correct and get to a point that gets you to that desirable end state. Is that the missing piece that we don't have yet that he's trying to kind of pull together?
Yeah, and you could drill into even that into deeper levels, because you cover an enormous amount of ground when you say, is that the missing piece? It's actually missing pieces.
Sure. Yeah. When that came out of my mouth, I was like, yeah, is that a missing piece?
So, it's hard to predict what piece you're going to miss and what stage and how deep, and how to validate that the piece is actually correct and doing it correctly. I mean, I've got to a point that I'm fairly comfortable with Grok in terms of the interrogation. As you said, you can find yourself miles off path on a single project, but the way I found it works extremely well with Grok is to not give Grok a prompt at the end that is the objective endpoint. I think through the task myself, and I break it down into pieces, and I start at the top of the piece, and not give it direction right away, but indirection. That is to say, I give it the thought that I had that led me to the conclusion of what I want, and I lead it to the conclusion I want, and then it has a kind of history and a kind of substructure, a foundation, if you like, and it finds it easier to find the path forward. At least that's what I've done on my research papers. Now, whether I can do that in tools to create the kind of functionality that I need out of an app or out of a real piece of software, I don't know. But in concept, it sounds right to me. But we're at such an early stage of this game, guys. We are so early. It's like we're trying to find our way in the swamp. That's how I feel.
Matt, I'd like for you to comment on what Lemonade's doing with just their average employees and using AI to be like that super assistant.
I was actually kind of thinking that when Larry was talking about, the difference between a deterministic AI and some of the other, all the LLMs out there that are not deterministic. So you'll get a different answer, depending on when you ask it and, the specific words which you use. Exactly. So if you're, trying to pay out claims or whatever your application is, like we can take this outside the insurance realm. If you need a process done a certain way, you can't just spin up an LLM and have it own that process, because it'll work great maybe 99% of the time, but on that 1% of the time when it really screws up, depending on the severity of or the criticality of that particular process, that can be a real problem. So what Lemonade has done is essentially they architected their own systems of AIs where deterministically they know, okay, if this client comes to us with a claim, then here are the individual steps that we go down. So they're guiding the AI down these processes that they've predetermined that are the right things to go. If the customer is asking about this, then here are the two different, kind of decision trees of where we might take them. But then they'll layer in the LLM on top of that to give it some character and to make it feel extremely natural. So they're using the LLM as a tool on top of their deterministic AI. And to me, it's like marrying those two is extremely important. But the much harder thing to do is to have that deterministic, decision tree for all the different processes you have, which they've, Lemonade in their case have painstakingly built that over 10 years. I think we're getting to a point where companies will be able to do things like that. If we get to a point where AGI is truly there and able to identify what all the different processes are and say, okay, with some human input, at least for right now, here's the kind of path we need to go down. How can I architect a system or an application that will help me ensure these guardrails are never crossed, but also, have that soft human-ish touch.
Well, not to advertise my company, my previous company, this is what we do. We use AI to build these decision trees. We then test these decision trees against many millions of transactions to see if they give us what we expect to happen. And then we allow these decision trees to run, with code, with deterministic code.
Yeah.
And then we use AI to analyze the deterministic results and to continuously improve the decision trees. So you get deterministic code giving you, results that you can forecast in advance for a given state. And then you're testing that result. So there is, some degree of lag between creating the decision tree and determining that it's giving you the results that you expected and wanted. And then, constantly recycling that. And then there's nothing to stop you automating that. The question is, who determines what is the right result? If you have a case like Lemonade, you'd have to, constantly be tracking at an almost, instantaneous basis your claim rates, your claim ratios, and there you can't, only the future will determine whether you're right or wrong. So, but yeah, I mean, what you've described, Matt, is the state of the art today. How to get to the future and whether to get to the future. And then the other thing is, can we get to the point where AI is functional enough to actually be the code rather than to generate the deterministic code? That's the open question, and that's why I'm of the opinion that the next stage, the stage towards, super AI or whatever they want to call it these days. It was AGI and then SGI and then whatever, but is where inference and training merge, and we don't have to go through a training stage and an inference stage, that when we're inferring, we're also reviewing and updating and improving the logic.
Mm-hmm.
So
I want to talk about macro hard a second here. So, but you go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, just on that last point, Larry. As I'm thinking about this, and I'm not a state-of-the-art AI programmer, so I'm just asking this in earnest. But if we're have that vision that you're talking about, where you're kind of merging training and inference, it seems to me that you'd want a lot of that inference at the edge. So I mean, like the Tesla, Tesla bot, for example, it's going to need to be a much more beefy computer, which Elon was talking about. But at the same time, Elon is talking about these massive, multi-gigawatt, tens of gigawatts, ultimately terawatt scale data centers, which would clearly not be edge. Those are centralized, and it would seem to me that those would be more training-based type of load. So how do you think of those two, divergences where, at the one hand, you are going to need more like beefy edge compute to do the type of on-the-job learning like you're talking about. At the same time, I think everybody in the AI field is saying we need massive super clusters. So where's the convergence in those two disparate ideas?
That's the $1 trillion question, right? Or the trillion watt
Yeah.
question.
Both, yeah.
Yeah. So, without doubt, inference has to be done at the edge. Can't be done, any central point. But without doubt, inference and training need to find a marriage. I was very encouraged to see the context window in Grok 4, whatever they call the latest
Grok 4 code.
Yeah, is going to be 2 million
tokens.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Because the size of that context is critical to the ability to actually do some ratiocination, to actually evolve the thinking on the task. That's the reason why these tasks have to be so disjointed, is because these context windows are so small. Mm-hmm. But when you've got such a large context window, you have extraordinarily valuable training data, extraordinarily valuable. So, one can think about transporting some of this context back to, the training cluster, well, what we currently call the training cluster. But in this idea that, I'm trying to think about, and have that go back to the training cluster and maybe update the inference machine. So just ever expanding the context window to where it's as large as the training, memory is not the answer, but some sort of solution in this idea of how to evolve the mind. It's true that we sleep at night, and perhaps that's what refreshes our training cluster in our head. But the truth is that on a daily basis, we are learning and applying our learning to our actual knowledge on a minute by minute basis. So how large is our context window? A day large? Well, if it's a day large, that's more than 2 million, tokens. So we're such an early stage of this. People don't.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. The prompt engineering has become context engineering, and I think maybe trying to use the full 2 million context might be too much. You might confuse it. So like that what becomes state of the art or best practices is going to evolve from here. So speaking of training and inference, we got a little both from NVIDIA. So, they're investing. This got a little awkward. They're investing up to $100 billion in OpenAI, similar to Microsoft. So Microsoft owns around half of OpenAI. Is that right, Matt?
Somewhere close to that. Yeah, I think it's under that mark, but yeah, very meaningful percentage.
So I think they got that for like 10 to 30 billion in investment. Maybe it's a little more than that, but compared to what OpenAI is worth now, and Microsoft is thrilled that they invested in OpenAI. Now the question is, will OpenAI be worth more in the future compared to when they get awarded these equity grants? So I'm guessing it's going to be upon delivery of these GPUs, the building of these server farms. So that's an open question: is will OpenAI be able to monetize better in the future? And I think the take that a lot of people had, I think, was like maybe a first level thinking. And so I challenged my brain last night to think about, okay, what's the second level thinking? What's the next thought? And how's a different way to think about this? Because people are very troubled that NVIDIA is literally paying their customer to buy their product from them, right? But they're getting ownership in the customer's business. So that's one thing. Another thing is that NVIDIA's margins are very high. They're over 75%. So for NVIDIA to lose money on the deal outright, they would need OpenAI to drop, below their cost of being able to deliver those GPUs. So those were some thoughts that, and like if you go to Microsoft is happy that they did it. So Larry, I'm definitely triggering you a bit. Let's hear it.
Not that crazy about vendor financing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, investing, quote unquote, investing $100 billion into OpenAI is nothing but NVIDIA providing investor financing for OpenAI at a pretty high level of risk and a pretty low cost to OpenAI. I like to keep things separate. I don't, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but anyway, it's this is an arms race, and I guess wherever you can get arms, you take them. I guess that's the bottom line, and so we can understand that.
I guess the other risk is that they also don't want to see too much ground to XAI, so everyone feels like they need to have the biggest server farm. There's a risk that XAI they get a server farm that's like 10 times bigger than everyone else, and no one can catch up. Certainly Elon wants to build the biggest one. He wants to be the first 10 gigawatts or whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, something in my border tells me this things that there's going to be a sad ending. There are going to be tears at the end of this trail.
Mm.
somehow. I mean, this kind of craziness never ends well. It never ends well. But I mean, on the other hand, Elon's all in. I mean, he is all in, and when that guy goes all in, things happen. Good things happen. So I don't know. It's really interesting.
Well,
What do you
I
think?
do think it's fair to say though that like not every company competing in this AI arms race is going to win. At the end of it, like that's what happens with arms races. Like some people get more arms and they win. Um, I think it's certainly possible that this particular deal doesn't work out for Nvidia, and OpenAI is not able to figure out how to monetize this early lead that they've established and fund this massive capex plan that they've got. So if that ends up being the case, then this might not work out. But my personal thought is kind of investing in this space broadly is going to be a good play. There will be winners that emerge in this space. I'm certainly biased, but I think Elon's proven ability to lead, and I mean, just look at what he did. I mean, I think it's so remarkable. He started OpenAI, got kind of out of favor with the management team and the direction they were going. Realized that they had a huge lead, and that was not good for humanity. So he just out of nowhere goes and starts XAI, and now they've got the first gigawatt data center. They do stuff with Colossus that absolutely blows Jensen Huang's mind. And now he's talking about being first to 10 gigawatts and 100 gigawatts and a terawatt. So I would not want to be in OpenAI's shoes here, where they've got this massive capex plan plus massive operating expenses, and they're arguably ceding their technological lead to somebody who can move faster than them. That's not a company I would personally want to invest in.
I think that's very good commentary. I like that a lot. But I mean, OpenAI have got a dominating position in the marketplace. If you look at the actual tokens that are running right now, I mean, they have massive usage. And so I think, they have a very big advantage, but we'll see. It'll be very exciting to see where this gets us. I mean, I'm glad I'm not caught in the middle of that race. I'll tell you that. I just so happy not to be in that business.
I would actually argue that their massive token usage is slowing them down. And I was actually at the conference 2 weeks ago or last week, where some OpenAI representatives were talking there about how just extreme their levels of demand are, and that they are literally holding back on both the performance to their users because of how high demand is, and they're holding back on releasing new features and updated versions of the model because they can't train fast enough based on how high their usage is. So if these tokens that they're that are coming at them on the demand side were positive cash flow tokens, and were enabling the company to move faster and kind of establish a flywheel of accelerating away from the rest of the pool, I would agree with that point. But I think it actually might be causing them to make some compromises that may impact their long-term ability to fight this fight. Now, all that said, I can definitely see a future where OpenAI is a big winner and it does make it. So I'm not trying to just say that this is for sure a bad deal, but I do think I find their position, especially at this valuation level, a lot less attractive than some of the other players in the space.
So Larry, we got to wrap things up.
Yeah.
I want to do a called shot. So this is a D&D term. So I think macro hard may be their moonshot. I think macro hard may be the Starlink for XAI. If you can replicate Microsoft's business and be able to offer that, at a discount, there's a potential to disrupt Microsoft with macro hard. So this could become the cash cow for XAI, where OpenAI doesn't have a cash cow like this.
Well, they have Microsoft, which is already taking up all the cash. You may be right. I mean, it would be marvelous to see them achieve it. I think it's bloody hard to put a name to macro hard. I mean, it's bloody difficult rather than macro hard. I mean, to be able to replicate that kind of stack, wow, that would be marvelous. That would be marvelous. That would be super amazing. But
it might be the path to monetization, but beyond payments or video or X, it might be the monetization. So he's Larry Goldberg. That's Matt Smith. I'm Bradford Ferguson. It's been fun to join you all to introduce Lumicenti to you and join us on this day of macro hard and NVIDIA doing vendor investing, and to get some wisdom from Larry around investing in business and decision trees and all that fun stuff. I had a lot of fun. Any parting shot, Larry?
No, but life is macro hard.
With that, I'm going to say bye for now.